All right, a bunch of you sent this to me, and I want to actually take the time to go through it. There's a clip making the rounds on the internet called Charlie Kirk Destroys Crazy Eco Nut Student. That's the title of the clip. Charlie Kirk is sort of like a Ben Shapiro type character who goes to college campuses and he debates college students, and he speaks very confidently, and people in the background clap, and it sort of comes off like Charlie Kirk is smart and articulate and factual. Most importantly, it comes off like he's owning these college kids with facts and logic, and he's not. And that's why this format that these right-wingers have developed is so terrible. So let's calmly go through it. This is about climate change. A student who is admittedly not well prepared tries to confront Charlie Kirk about anthropogenic climate change, meaning human-caused climate change. And Charlie Kirk comes off like he's doing a good job, but it's all BS. Okay, so let's take it one claim at a time and tell me if this is useful.
No question will be here.
This is the last question.
Sorry, we got it. Sorry, thank you.
Yeah, first of all, sorry for laughing when you were talking about the environment, because it's just completely ridiculous for you to suggest that we're...
Can you prove to me carbon dioxide is the only reason why the atmosphere is heating?
Okay, so already we have a problem. Can you prove to me that carbon dioxide is the only reason why the atmosphere is heating? So we can now calmly think about that. Number one, I don't know anybody claiming that heating is the only way we notice climate change. We're talking about erratic and extreme weather, more record highs, more record lows, unseasonable weather, extreme weather events like storms, sea level rise, etc. Okay, so Charlie Kirk is asking for a defense to a claim that's not even a good claim. And then number two, CO2 as the cause of climate change. I mean, we're really talking, CO2 is one of the ways that we see the impact that we're having, but we're really talking about activities, generating electricity by burning fossil fuels, manufacturing and industry emissions, which release numerous gases, CO2 being one, deforestation, using transportation, producing food, powering buildings. They all relate to emissions, and emissions include CO2. But it's overly simplistic to say CO2 is the cause itself. Well, trees need CO2, so we shouldn't be worried about that. That's the claim they like to make. The point is everything is falling out of balance. And when he frames the question in this simplistic way, prove that carbon dioxide is the only reason climate is warming. We're not talking only about carbon dioxide, and we're not talking only about warming. Okay, next they move on to sunspots.
The only reason necessarily, also, not just carbon dioxide, because there's methane and there's a lot of other gases. Greenhouse gases are causing climate change. Like, this is a huge driver in climate change. And
do you think sunspots have any sort of contributing factor?
Not to a point where we can say that it's not a.
So why is it that?
Okay, sunspots. Charlie Kirk says, well, maybe sunspots are the reason for climate change. Well, climate scientists agree that sunspots and even solar wind could play a role in warming, but warming is only one aspect of climate change, and the role of sunspots has been studied. The vast majority of climate scientists say the role of sunspots is minimal, absolutely minimal. And really, the causes of climate change are industrial activity. There are thousands of peer-reviewed studies to back that up. Now, you can come in and say, well, all of the science is just wrong. All of those scientists are wrong. And later in the segment, Charlie Kirk does basically say that. But now you're arguing that they're getting everything wrong. And could science get something wrong? Of course. But is it likely that at this point they're getting everything wrong on this issue? No, it's not particularly likely. So now let's continue. And now they use it. Charlie Kirk uses another talking point.
Say that it's not a.
So why is it that in northern Scotland back in the 1700s they had a Mediterranean climate? What made that change?
The climate fluctuates naturally.
Oh, it does. Okay, so we admit that. Got it.
Okay. So this is another popular talking point. If industrialization is responsible for climate change, why was it so much warmer in northern Scotland in the 1700s than it is today? Why? This has been widely studied, and there's actually 4 of these examples that are often cited. Northern Scotland was Mediterranean. There were vineyards in England. England in general was warmer, and there were vineyards during the medieval period because it was so much warmer. Greenland used to actually be green. Newfoundland was full of grapes, meaning it also had a much milder climate. So it's been studied. This is not new ground. The idea with Charlie Kirk is he says this stuff to people who have never heard it before. Some of these beliefs are based on tree ring data. Tree ring data is not the most accurate for evaluating temperature since it can be affected by rainfall and some other things. But it's something, and it's quite possible that there were some warmer moments before industrialization. That's not really a big deal. Second, it's not clear that in all of these popular examples, Newfoundland, Greenland, etc., it's not clear that they're actually referring to the specific places on Earth that we think they are, because there have been changes to the way we as humans refer to different places. So part of it is they may be actually referring to slightly different locations, longitudinally and latitudinally. Number three, no one's denying that there have been periods of warmer and colder climate over time on Earth. The issue is that there has been a consistency globally to the warming over the last 100 years and particularly the last 30 years than at any time during the medieval period. So you could identify some microclimate differences. Microclimate being like San Francisco. If you go just north or south of San Francisco, it's like super hot a lot of the year, but in San Francisco, it's cooler. You can identify microclimates, whether they're Scotland or whatever. It doesn't disprove anything about the broader climate change caused by industrialization. Okay, let's continue. Next, they get to temperature fluctuations.
Yes, this
so
is true.
So outside of human emissions,
No. Okay, look, listen to me right now. You're clapping. It shows ignorance right there because yes, there's natural fluctuations in temperature. However, humans are causing climate change. We know this. The evidence shows it, and you're being ignorant, honestly.
Okay, so what evidence are you talking about?
Okay, so this is where they kind of love to wrap you up, where you go, well, it's only human activity causing climate change. And then they get you to admit, well, no, there are some natural fluctuations. Again, you can't fall into this stuff. Of course, there are fluctuations over time. We've had ice ages and then the ice ages end. Nobody's denying that. What we know right now is that much of the change that we're seeing is not at all natural. It's happening much more rapidly than other natural fluctuations have happened. And when you look at ice cores, which let us see conditions going back 800,000 years, when you look at pollen remains and ocean sediment and glaciers and more, you know today that there is much more methane in the atmosphere than at any time in the last 800,000 years. These are not little fluctuations that go with ice age or whatever. And we can see over a longer period of time. Now, then they get into whose evidence can you believe? Whose views can you believe?
IPCC climate change report?
So 97% of scientists agree that one?
Yes.
Is science a democracy? Do we vote on gravity?
We reach consensus. The way the scientific process is, we get evidence.
We get thermodynamics. Do we have a consensus on Newton's second law? Here's the problem. I want to know
yes,
the three.
There's consensus.
No, it's 100% because it's provable.
No,
you can't prove it. Here's the issue. We don't have an up or down vote on things that can be proven.
You're not a scientist.
I want to know what the 3% believe. You know why? Because usually the 3% dissenting opinion against the majority is the one that we should listen to the most. That's called the scientific method.
So that's just wrong. I mean, it's unless you have some particular reason to believe that the 3% is correct and the 97% is wrong. There's no particular reason that we should listen more to the 3% than the 97%. And even that number is wrong. It's really more like 99.8 and 0.2%. But that's a meaningless claim. Listen to the minority more. Why? Well, I mean, okay, listen to what they're saying, but why do we give them more weight?
I'm pro-science. You're pro-mobocracy. You're pro-hysteria. You're pro-panic. And by the way, you're completely ignoring the positive effects of a changing climate. For example, the world has never been greener. Did you know that? Did you ever know that we have more grassland and more farmland able to be used for consumption than ever before? Did you know that?
Okay. So that's not really true. This talking point, the earth has never been greener, it's really only relative to like a few decades ago. And it is in a sense true that over the last 2 decades, Earth has increased its green leaf area by a total of about 5%. Now, one of the major reasons for that is that we're starting with a lower baseline. The deforestation of the 1970s in particular left us at a very low starting point. And over the last 20 years, China and India have done massive tree planting campaigns. So they've sort of artificially bumped up the amount of green leaf areas. There are questions about whether this artificial greening has the same carbon capture power that one might imagine, and the answer appears to be no. But this is comparing to the massive deforestation of the 70s and 80s. Let's get now to his claims about the safety of cold versus hot.
Used for consumption than ever before. Do you know that less people live in extreme cold than ever before? And this whole climate fluctuation.
Okay. I think he means fewer people, but he says less people live in extreme cold than ever before. They claim that this like it's a good thing. Heat kills way more people than cold. Okay? Way more people on Earth have the ability to heat themselves when it's cold than to cool themselves when it's hot. If you look at the availability of fire versus air conditioning, heat-related deaths over time are estimated to be more than 5 million people a year because of, actually no, 5 million is because of extreme heat or cold. The majority of that is because of heat. And heat-related deaths are on the rise, whereas cold-related deaths are not. In the United States, it's also known that heat kills more people than cold. And this is even accounting for, you know, this idea of the homeless person out in the cold in the winter. Heat kills way more people. So the idea that it's good for humanity, it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Let's listen to the last bit.
Nonsense. We're only dealing with a 100-year data set. We know that the climate naturally fluctuated.
Okay, so that's the last thing I'll talk about, the 100-year data set. What they mean when they say that is that modern historical weather and temperature records only go back to about the 1880s. It's like 140, 150 years. So it's true that modern weather data only goes back that far when people started measuring temperature more or less the way we do now. But as I mentioned before, we have 800,000 years of ice melt cycles. We have glacier data that's much older. We have ocean sedimentary data, pollen layers, and more things. So the kid confronting Charlie Kirk is unprepared, no question whatsoever. But the arguments that Charlie Kirk makes are all bad. And in that format, there's no opportunity to really explore it. But when you break it down piece by piece, you see that that is exactly what it is. It's simply nonsense. Let me know if these types of clips are useful. I do what I can when it comes to climate change, because this is one of the most important issues of our time. If we don't have a planet, it's hard to do much about women's rights or campaign finance or whatever. And I do whatever I can at the individual level, bearing in mind that corporations also have to change a lot to reduce my climate footprint. This includes being aware of how far is my food coming from, or how much trash am I generating, these types of things. And this is why our sponsor, Wren, is so important. Wren is a chartered public benefit company, and they unlock the collective action of individuals against climate change. And Wren is a very simple and effective way to make a difference on climate. Wren is a website where you calculate your carbon footprint personally. You answer a few questions about your lifestyle. Wren will then tell you what your carbon footprint is and let you offset it by funding a diverse mix of carbon reduction projects like tree planting, mineral weathering, rainforest protection. Once you sign up to make a monthly contribution to offset your carbon footprint, you'll get monthly updates from the projects you support, and you'll get to see where is your money going. You'll see photos, you'll get details. It will take a lot to end the climate crisis, but you can start offsetting your carbon footprint today, and Wren will cover the first month of your subscription for free when you sign up at wren.co/David. The link is down below.